It's Harrison Price.
Just in the nick of time.
Tuesday, June 3rd. Plenty of time. Right on the mark. Hit the post. June 3rd, 2025. Coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. And this program, a presentation of Bet365. I'm Matt. He's Blake. Mike Rogerson and all his Junos are hitting switches and conducting things. He's playing under the weather, too. Trooper.
He could build a house with Juno awards.
4 pillars, baby.
They're pretty hefty, too. They would work as a foundation.
Pretty expensive.
I would hope they are hefty after you have to pay to receive them. Anyways.
Yeah.
We should get Bruce Allen on that file, although his guys can all afford the...
Yeah, I think so.
We got a big show coming up for you here because, Cam Robinson has some news about Elias Pettersson, which we're going to get into. But also, the Abbotsford Canucks, a little adversity now, and more offseason machinations in the National Hockey League, including some info about one team that could very well be in retool here. So, start with our Bogey Juice poll question. Do you have confidence the Canucks will land a bona fide top 2 center, Blake Price? First crack.
I think I'm going to go consensus with a lot of people that, yeah, they will. And it's not necessarily going to be backflips when it happens because it could come at a great cost, but they seem hell-bent on making it happen no matter the cost. So I think they stick to their guns and actually do execute on it. So I'll say yes.
Yeah. I voted no, and simply, here's where I'm coming from. Have heard Rutherford's mouth. Have understand that he has called his shot before. Seems very, very determined, especially that line. Yeah, it's going to be expensive, but it would be more expensive not to add that second line center. Alas, here's the problem. Most of the league is awash in cap space. Most of the league is looking for the same profile of player. And I just, on the wording of the poll, confidence, I just don't have a lot of confidence in the Vancouver Canucks writ large these days.
It's fair.
So I voted no. That all said, as I mentioned, like some teams are now into their off seasons and getting their business done.
With their RFAs predominantly.
Yeah, I mean, Noah Cates
UFAs.
re-signed today in Philadelphia. That was an RFA centerman. And look, he did not necessarily fit the bill as a top 2 center for the Vancouver Canucks or anybody else, but there was some talk that maybe he was a guy who was going to shake free in Philadelphia, and he would have applied to the, flood the zone with centers and hope that, somebody emerges and improves their standing in the NHL. But the New York Islanders are a particularly interesting team this offseason. They have a new general manager in Mathieu Darche replacing Lou Lamoriello. And this from Canucks News Summaries, which is a fantastic account that you should all follow if you're not already following it. They're in a compromised position. They're like one of the few teams without much cap space. And they have some RFAs of consequence here. Noah Dobson is an elite defenseman, a right side guy, too. Romanov, another defenseman who they paid a top 15 pick for a couple of years ago with the Montreal Canadiens. Simon Holmstrom had a very nice season for them, young forward. Siplikov, also a young forward with a good season for them. And then Perenovich, a one-time top prospect defenseman. I would anticipate they want to get most of those guys done. And yet, as News Summaries points out, He's got them with about $23.5 million in cap space, but just on 15 players. So those 5 plus 3 more is particularly difficult to fit into $23-24 million of cap space.
Generally, though, you hold on to the big guys, and you
do.
make it work, and you trim on the peripherals.
But we don't yet know what the marching orders are for Mathieu Darche. Is he being told by ownership, look, we anticipate competing for the playoffs next season? If that's the case, then yes, this is closer to a retool, and maybe it's hockey trades. The other possibility there is that they do accept some degree of a rebuild. Now, RFAs tend to be young, so I would think they would want to get those guys done. But then you get into Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal, guys who are already on pretty big tickets. Do you further jumpstart your rebuild, which of course includes the first overall pick this year, by being able to trade one of those guys, create your cap space, re-sign your young RFAs, and get further younger, cheaper assets?
Well, there's also the possibility, though, that teams retool while trying to remain competitive. I mean, not that they've been terribly competitive, the Islanders, but they've been on the bubble, and some years in, some years out over the last couple. And, you know, teams like Dallas and Colorado are now being rumored to be looking at making some fairly major changes if the Necas and Robertson, availability is to be believed. And so teams look at, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like they're going to delete some pretty big names, but they have no intention of taking a step back. So no intention, and that's the biggest thing to remember. Of those 3 teams, if they make the rumored deals, one of those 3 teams will get it wrong, and they will take a step back.
Here's what I would say. I don't see any fit with Jason Robertson in the Vancouver Canucks.
As a pure winger.
I mean, he's going to cost Sun, Moon, and Stars, and most of their available cap space, and he's a pure winger. Now, if you believe Necas can play the middle, if you think your team is best served with him playing the middle, because needless to say, the guy can fly and has been a dangerous player to have to defend coming off the wing when he's got lots of runway. But if you believe he can play the middle, then that is a most interesting name. Now, he's under contract for 1 more year before he moves into unrestricted free agency. So part and parcel of that acquisition has to be an understanding that you're going to go to the wall to get him paid, re-signed, and he's not going to be cheap with this cap going up.
He'll rival Patterson's number.
Well, yeah. I mean, his representatives know as much as anyone else that not only is the cap going up this year, it's scheduled to go up again next year too, and he's going to be in line to make a hell of a lot of money. Yeah, a Patterson number could very well be very
which isn't fair based on resume, but based on inflation, it all of a sudden becomes absolutely reasonable.
Percentage of the cap would be the governing principle there that his representative would want to negotiate off. So I'm open to that.
So back to the Islanders. Do they move Barzal and Horvat as part of I
would think it's one. I would think it's one, not both. But
no, one or the other. Mm-hmm. Do they move that with the think of can we reload and be just as good a team as we are next year, or is it actually part of a futures accumulation and full rebuild?
Yeah, well, and saying that because, the Islanders do not necessarily have the flushest pipeline right now. Cole Yzerman is a very gifted offensive player who they took in the first round last year, but he's not a center. And, you're going to need more than that, needless to say.
Mm-hmm.
Cal Ritchie was a very nice addition in the Brock Nelson trade as a center iceman there. And there's a couple of other guys on the Islanders who could factor as prospects who push for NHL jobs here going forward. But, you take a look at that team, and is it set up to compete for a Stanley Cup next season? Probably not, right? I mean, yeah, you've got a fantastic goaltender there in Sorokin, and if he plays his best, maybe he underpins greater team success, and you are able to compete at the top of the East. I'd be a little surprised. And the other thing about the Islanders is, Lamoriello signed a lot of these long-term deals with older players. Like, you take a look at their forward group for next year. Horvat, 30. Anders Lee, 34. Palmieri just re-signed, 34. Pajot, 32. Cizikas, 34. Matt Martin, 36. And all of these guys have at least one, if not several years left of term.
Yeah.
And there's Engvall, 29, who's signed through the next decade, for God's sakes, at a smaller cap hit. But, I mean, one of the most bizarre contracts.
It's strange contract.
They gave him, did they give him the full 8 or did he get 7? Including a modified no trade for a guy who at one point was on waivers last year. So it is very possible that Darsh and his people come in and go, this thing's a friggin' mess. Like, we got no chance of competing for very little chance of competing for a Stanley Cup next year. Okay, maybe we make the playoffs, but are we truly contenders? Let's have an honest moment. No, we're not. So let's set this thing up to be better in our year 2, year 3, year 4 than what we're looking at now. Horvat, of course, $8.5 million per year, which at the time we thought was a lot of money, signed through 2030-31.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the 6 years left at $8.5 million, but as a percentage of the cap, of course, that salary is not nearly what it was when the deal was signed. Then there's Barzal. And look, Barzal is 28 years old, 9.1, also signed long-term, also signed through 30-31. So 6 more seasons of him as well. When he's on the ice, nobody has any issue with his game. He's been injured a fair bit. He's got a modified no-trade clause, and that only starts that started last year. So he's got a 22-team no-trade list. Don't know whether his hometown Vancouver Canucks would be on the no-go zone or on the fly zone. I mean, I guess there's only, 9 teams that they can trade him to, right?
Yep.
Am I doing that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, look, likely, of course not. In the realm of possibility, yes. And then there's the ongoing and parallel situation with Elias Pettersson. And every insider, and Gregor told us this at trade deadline, and others have reported it this month or in the last week. Canucks are going to reengage. They are going to see what the market is. I mean, Patrick Alvin forecasted this when he said at that end of season media availability that he's keeping his options open. Would be crazy not to keep his options open. Nick Kiprio saying Pettersson's trade value hasn't taken as big a hit as you might think coming off the poor season.
Well, it's funny. This is sort of, Rossi's name gets put up there, and immediately people go, "Oh my gosh, he's amazing! He does this and that, and he's people go crazy." And then as the dust settles, people are like, "Okay, but." He's a little limited in size, obviously.
He's not this, he's not that.
He's not, and you start to pick it up. And it's sort of the opposite happens with a guy like Patterson, who immediately you're like, "Ugh, gross." You see the year he had, but then you're like, "Oh, but there's actually a bigger amount of evidence that he's done this, that, and the other, and it's a pretty rare breed. And yes. I'd be willing to roll the dice that I can bring that back out of that player in the right milieu." So
I think the one thing that we need to understand and don't always understand is we get hung up in the day-to-day of the regular season and, slumps and he's got 1 assist in his last 7 games and things like that. Trade value isn't as volatile as the average fan would think.
Recency bias isn't as critical.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think fans and media are far more susceptible to recency bias than people who are running organizations. Mm-hmm. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Elias Pettersson's name is absolutely a boogeyman in some coaching circles. I think there are some coaches who, either via Rick Tocchet or Bruce Boudreau or Travis Green or whatever the case, have watched the Elias Pettersson scenario from afar, may have had some conversations, and understand that this has been a difficult player to reach.
But strong senior GMs may not even bother tapping that coach for his opinion on this matter.
GMs look at it and say that is a rare talent, one of the few first-line centermen that could be available, at his height, of course, not last year. And I'm willing to take the risk that what we saw last year was a one-off as opposed to something that's going to be par for the course. And these situations so very rarely crop up. Players like this are so very rarely available that they'd be willing to meet an asking price in a trade.
And in terms of the soap opera and drama that was created this year, he's not the loud, brash guy. That's generally who gets the attention and gets labeled as the boogeyman. And every time you bring up an issue with Patterson, one or two more guys drop off the wait list. Mm-hmm. But I believe that part of the Kipros report at the very least, that it's probably a little bit more valuable a player on the market than you would think given the noise.
Yeah, I've been consistent on this for some time, Blake. People talk about trading Elias Pettersson for pennies on the dollar. No, it's just wrong.
And the contract,
is his value at its absolute peak? No, but there's a Grand Canyon between pennies on the dollar, the phrase that seems so popular,
but also the inflation
and peak value
is also helping here. This is going to be back-to-back years of pretty big salary cap jumps, making that 11.6 a lot more. I mean, in 3 years' time, Matt, you could argue that 11.6 will be on the lower end of 1Cs.
Yep.
Of 1Cs, not of top six centers, but on the lower end of 1Cs.
Yeah, wait till McDavid signs his next contract, right? So, look, I've been consistent on this. There will be an Elias Pettersson trade available to them that is pretty good. Do I think it will return a bona fide lock stock number one centerman? Probably not. But chance, maybe a young player who can develop into a number one centerman. But I don't for a second think that the offers are all just going to be pennies on the dollar and the Vancouver Canucks are going to be forced to accept something like that.
As we wind our way,
I think with a wise general manager who's good at negotiating, marketing his player, that there should be a palatable Elias Pettersson trade out there if the Canucks are willing to cut bait, if they don't believe in Elias as a championship centerpiece going forward.
Winding our way back to Colorado and Necas, who was rumored to be in that original Carolina Hurricanes deal, of course. Mm-hmm. Colorado's not making any desperate moves. They're not liquidating Marty Necas. So I would guess the only way that Necas is a Canuck is if Pettersson is going the other way. I don't think the Canucks have the assets to pull off another trade for Marty Necas. And then, in that regard, you are somewhat only treading water because you are still then in the market for. And so I would suggest that it becomes a very busy summer because now you've added a trade to the docket. You almost have to try to
make a second one.
Well, you have to. You have to try to consummate those within arm's reach of each other, just so that you know that you have some certainty. It's hard to pull off that trade and then have the uncertainty of if trade number 2 is coming. You're wasting your energy.
Yeah, no, I hear you there. And I do think if you're moving Elias, you're probably moving him for a package as opposed to a 1-for-1. On the Colorado side of things, look, they went out and spent heavy to get Brock Nelson to fortify their playoff run.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And Nelson's a free agent. And actually more on him later with Cam Robinson. So, no, absolutely. They are looking to add. Yeah.
They're looking to add and possibly change.
Yeah. Well,
and change flavor, but the change is not guaranteed.
Maybe. I mean, there were times Necas and McKinnon looked awesome together, right?
And the points per game is totally fine.
Oof.
Like, it wasn't a disappointing points per game total for him, but
No,
he
sir.
just was not as dominant as Mikko Rantanen
No,
was in the same
well,
spot.
but, which is why Carolina included several other assets.
Right.
Understanding the difference between Rantanen and Necas, and boy, with him and McKinnon on the ice, I mean, it's two of the best skaters in the world. So, as for Patterson, I think many Canucks, I've seen it countless times out there on social, and I think it's right that a lot of Canucks fans, and I think Canucks management, are looking at these couple of months since the end of the Canucks season in mid-April and coming up to mid-June here and going, okay, he spent a little bit of time at Rogers Arena working out under the auspices of the Canucks and their personnel. He then went back home to Stockholm, working with that Stockholm group last summer was not viewed as ideal. And Cam Robinson actually did some digging on this and has an update for us later in the program. Short strokes, that Stockholm training group wasn't able to, and look, he went there with knee tendonitis, and so maybe there was good reason, but that Stockholm group wasn't able, at least last summer, to improve him where he needs improving, and that is with his balance and his core strength and being just stouter on his skates to take the leveling, the pounding that a National Hockey League forward of his ilk is going to get from oftentimes best defense pairs and matchup shutdown center icemen and forward lines. That has to happen at some point. I mean, we've all talked about it. It's evident out there.
Mm-hmm.
The brain for hockey, the hockey IQ, is elite. The shot, when he chooses to use it, is elite. The playmaking, the creativity is really, really good. The physical tools are not quite at that level. Some of the physical tools may never come. Elias has talked about putting weight on is difficult for him. He made the joke about the biology and the sort of family curse he has with regards to how he's genetically predisposed. But getting stouter on the skates and getting a little quicker, at least getting a little more burst out of your first few steps, is something that can and should be achieved. And I think if you're the Vancouver Canucks, you need a sign that that's coming this summer. I would certainly hope that someone from Canucks Sports and Entertainment is making a trip over to Stockholm, if they haven't already, to eyeball Elias, see what's going on there with this training group, and render an opinion on whether they think this is what he needs or whether, yet again, we're missing the mark here.
I mean,
when it comes to big summer.
For a guy that's as intelligent as he is on the ice, Matt, I mean, I don't know how you go back to Sweden and do exactly what you've always done and think that's going to be enough.
Well, from his point of view, last year I was, the knee tendonitis got in the way, so this year will be full go, and this year will be it.
Well, right, but you have to ask, why did I have the knee tendonitis? What are we doing to analyze all that?
And Cam has information on that with regards to Elias's skating stride and how that might be contributing to the problem.
But still, you've got to assume that somebody in his corner, if not him himself, just uses a little bit of logic and says, okay, let's do something different here. Let's try to innovate my offseason rather than
one would hope
press replay.
One would hope. One would hope that the agent is in there. One would hope that there is an open ear given to the team and its suggestions. One would hope. Because otherwise, I think you're just looking at a work ethic issue. And if that is what's at root here, then I think you have to move him on.
If that sounds depressing for you folks, maybe suggest some bogey juice, because that would be a bogey. Bogey doesn't have to be necessarily a golf term. People now use bogeys in life and nothing takes the edge off quite like a bogey juice when life starts serving you up bogeys.
Any experience on that front, Blake?
Of course.
Yeah, I think you would have drank them out of bogey juice yesterday.
Oh, well, okay. Now he's slinging mud. Okay, interesting. You ever heard me slinging mud on the show about your golf game? Okay. SP15 for as long as S&P can provide that. You get 15% off at bogeyjuice.com. Apple, ginger, top shelf vodka. It is delicious. Go serve it up right now.
Our top story today brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Also delicious. The Abbotsford Canucks lose 5-2 in Game 3 at Texas. They still lead the Stars 2-1 in their best of 7 AHL Western Conference Final Series. They got over the Game 2 curse. They had lost all 3 Game 2s prior to this series and then won it and took the 2-0 series lead, defending home ice in full. They've given one back here. They allowed 2 shorthanded goals, 2 power play goals. It was an absolute special teams
nearly a full house of special teams
from the Stars. Yeah. The penalty kill had been 39 for 40 in these playoffs. Some 97, 98% going into this game. Well, it took a hit after giving up a couple of man advantage markers. And the shorties don't help either when you're on the power play. Linus Karlsson continues his strong postseason. There's a goal. There's an assist. Our Steve Baines has been really playing well here in this series. Surrey's our Steve Baines with 2 assists. And Kirill Kudryavtsev, he gets on the score sheet as well with an assist. Christian Wolanin opened the scoring in the first period, but the first period ended 3-2 Texas, and the Stars got the only goals from there. Out shooting the Abbotsford Canucks 36-24. Artur Shilovs gives up 5 goals in this one, which bumps the GAA up to 184 and the save percentage to 930, takes it down to 934. So Artur's has been playing fantastic in this postseason. Last night was not his night, nor was it the Abbotsford Canucks night. Game 5 goes tomorrow in Austin, Texas. Abbotsford has not lost consecutive games since March. You may remember they went on that fantastic 13-game winning streak late in the season. And then in this postseason, when they've dropped one, they've come right back stronger the next game, and I think that's a lot of credit due to Manny Malhotra and his staff.
I'm not surprised there was a bit of a letdown. When you do the home sweep, you know you've done your job a little bit, and it's not a conscious thing to dust your hands off and say we don't need to win the next one. But that's what holding home ice does. It makes the next one not imperative. You want to take one of 3, and when you know you've got that insurance plan, maybe a little bit tough to dot the I's and cross the T's in the immediate game afterwards. Now, feet aren't to the fire here by any stretch of the imagination, but you want to split at the very least over these next 2 games in Texas, and I think that that game was a good smelling salt at the right time for the Abbotsford Canucks, and I would suggest and hope that it is a much better effort in game number 4.
Urgency is the thing. Fear is the thing.
Yeah.
Right? They're both pretty big motivators, and yes, that was on the Texas side of the equation.
That's right.
Another reminder on this is structured as a 2-3-2 series. So you'll have Game 4 tomorrow in Austin. Did I say Game 5? Game 4 tomorrow in Austin. Game 5 will also be in Austin. And then it's Sunday, Monday here back in Abbotsford if those games are required. And, of course, if the Abbotsford Canucks win the next couple of games, those games will not be required, and they'll be off to the Calder Cup final.
And let's hope that they keep giving us some content. Who'd have thought we'd have top stories galore for the Abbotsford Canucks on June 3rd?
A thing on our we played golf with Kevin Woodley yesterday of In Goal Media, and so we're talking goaltending. I always like to pick Kevin's brain on goaltending because I've seen it out there, and maybe we'll just talk about all the Canucks goalies here. But as good as this run has been for Arturs Shelovs, as good as the resume now looks in terms of taking Latvia on a medal run at the World Championships, which they love their hockey in Latvia, but they don't often play for a medal at the Senior Men's Worlds. And Arturs was the big reason why. A Stanley Cup playoff run with the Vancouver Canucks, dropped in mid-series as the third goaltender to play, not only wins that series, but gives the Edmonton Oilers, the Western Conference champions, with two of the best, if not the two best forwards in the world, a hell of a series in the next round, and now an AHL Calder Cup playoff run. You love all of that, and you love the fact that there's some big game pedigree now around this kid. But I don't think it is improving his trade value to the degree that some would hope or like.
No, probably not.
Most organizations out there are going to have a goalie like Arturs Shelovs. A young goalie they feel good about, a young goalie that they like as an organizational number 3, a young goalie who backstops and is a very good player at the AHL level, who may be a little untested or not yet fully trusted in the NHL to perform backup duties, and we saw that last year with Shelovs. So I don't think Shelovs in and of himself is a centerpiece to any kind of trade that helps next year's NHL club. Is that fair?
That's fair, and as they look back over the last 25 years of AHL playoff MVPs, and again, that's what we're talking about here. He had a good season, but we're talking about guys that ride the hot hand through the playoffs, lead their teams to the promised land. And a couple of handfuls of goalies have done it in the last 25 years. Most recently, Hunter Shepard 2 years ago. And you're thinking, who's that? And that's fair. Hunter Shepard is a career AHL goalie. He's 30 years old right now. So he did that at the age of 28, which is not what Shelovs is. Shelovs is a younger goalie. And we've seen that happen in years gone by as well. But in the last 25 years, of the goalies that have won playoff MVP, there are 3 that went on to have starting careers in the NHL playoffs. And that is Robin Lehner, Carey Price, and I said 3. That's pretty much it. There's other guys that had careers, Neuvert.
Yeah, we talked about him.
Wade Flaherty, Pazzi Nurminen played over 120 games, but we're not starters per se. So really it's Lehner and Price that parlayed that into NHL success.
And honestly, Carey Price basically does not apply there. I mean, this was a top 5 overall pick. Winner goaltender.
He was biding time.
Everybody understood that Carey Price was goaltending prodigy here.
Yeah.
When he played in the West.
But other guys that did it, Johan Holmqvist, Wade Flaherty played over 100 games, and Tiro Niittymaki, you probably remember the name, but again, not a star. Right. Frederick Kasivi, nope. And
Lehner was a second-round pick with big size and some tools. So, he was a pedigreed goaltender, more so than Shelovs. So Shelovs is not going to solve your problem in terms of NHL roster holes. But he wasn't able to solve your problem as backup goaltender last year.
I named a bunch of backups there, though. Could Shelovs be a backup and allow you to liquidate one of the other goalies? But I think we're back down to the age-old problem we talk about every single summer, Matt. What are goalies really worth?
No, I know. It's a very odd market. And so as we sat there playing golf with Kevin yesterday, I said to him, okay, Kev, let's say there's a true believer franchise out there on Thatcher Demko. GM, head coach, goalie coach, all aligned. This guy is a Vezina candidate. We believe that the injuries are, for the most part, behind him. We really want Thatcher Demko because he's an absolute upgrade on what we got, and he's our ticket next year to a more competitive season, if not advancement in the Stanley Cup Finals. And he said to me, that's great, Matt, but he's got 1 year left on his deal. And so then are you willing to assume the second risk of the extension on Demko before seeing him in action next year? And that's a tough bridge to cross, I think.
That's rolling several sets of dice.
That's it. And so you look at it as it's a 1 year proposition on Thatcher Demko if you're an acquiring team. What's that worth? It's probably not worth the top 6 forward, right?
No.
It might be worth a young forward that might mature into that one day, but I don't think anyone's given you a ready-made top 6 forward, top 4 defenseman in a Thatcher Demko deal this year, 1-for-1.
And from all that we've heard too, while many people love Kevin Lankinen as a top-end backup, nobody is trading for Kevin Lankinen thinking he's their answer in goal to lead them to the playoffs and beyond.
Well, so basically, if you accept both those things on Demko and Sheloves, that does bring you down to Lankinen, who's got the no move that kicks in on July 1st.
And a lot of people think that contract is just too much for Lankinen too.
It was in line, and in some cases cheaper than some of the other goaltending contract extensions that were signed this year. There is no question that Kevin Lankinen improved his lot in NHL life last year. Now, I've seen it written, and it is true. The story of Kevin Lankinen was probably better than what the numbers meted out at the end of the day.
Saves above expected and all that.
All of those things. I mean, his first half of the year, that body of work was extraordinary, but it wasn't as good.
Came back to the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Regressed to the mean. But as we sit here right now, Blake, if they are entertaining any kind of notion of trading a goaltender, and I'm not sure they are because I don't think they fully 100% believe in Sheloves as a backup just yet, even with this fantastic playoff run. I think the last couple of summers they've haven't been wholly impressed with the way Sheloves has worked on his own away from club view, which seems like a theme here. But if they are considering a goaltender move, is Lankinen the best asset of the three right now? Is Lankinen the most likely to return you something that fills one of your NHL roster holes?
I mean, if that is the bar that you're talking about, can you get an NHL roster player for Kevin Lankinen? Yeah, that's possible. But it doesn't fill any of their
Can you
chief
get a
holes.
top 6 forward?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
You don't think there's not a chance?
Like there's not a
He's
fiber
under
in my
contract at 4.5 going forward, Blake. If you believe in Kevin Lankinen, that is a most palatable deal.
No.
I know some people didn't like the contract. I think there are others out there that look at it and say, we have cost certainty on a starting goaltender for less than $5 million a year.
Well, that would be then somebody that believes that Kevin Lankinen is a true starting goalkeeper, and I don't think that there's a long list of teams that would have that thought. No.
Okay. All right.
I think they think he's a very, very good number 2. And when your number 1 goes down, you feel so comfortable putting that guy in. But I don't think there's anybody that's saying, that's my guy.
Okay. I think you're probably right. I do allow for the fact that the goaltending market some years can be most peculiar.
And again, that's to me the bigger point is you try and find any consistency in what a goalie is worth in the market, and I'll give you $1 million. Like you can point to so many different examples of that guy got good value, that guy got nothing back for you. Like you gave away that player. Like it's very strange, very fickle.
There you go. Win Blake Price's money. He's got $1 million up there.
Show me your thesis on the goaltending market.
There might be someone out there who's actually done that. Was it Lehner who was traded at the draft? Yeah. Remember we were at the 2015 draft and Lehner got traded?
Is that Florida?
He went from Ottawa to Buffalo.
No, were we in Florida? 2015? Is that
I believe that was the Florida draft. Yeah.
There's a couple deals.
He went for a first-round pick, 21st overall. So there you go. There are scenarios where teams just so goaltender desperate.
But that was back in the day. Honestly, I think it was right around then that it started to change because then you saw some quote-unquote mediocre goalies put up some pretty impressive numbers, take teams far.
And get moved for decent return.
Well, but more importantly, the decent goalie, not the great goalie, but the decent goalie won you games. And before, it was thought if you wanted to win games, you wanted to have success, you needed the star goalie.
Yep. So to recap, Demko, trade value suppressed by the injury history and just 1 year left on the deal. And the fact that an extension this summer, and this applies for the Vancouver Canucks as well, is a whole lot of risk.
Which is why
when you get a free look next year, Shelov's trade value suppressed by the fact that a lot of teams have similar goals, unless he's a clear NHL number 2, and he hasn't been a clear NHL number 2 yet.
Until he's done it, he hasn't done it.
Then it's a bit of a guessing game. You'd have to be really believe in what you've seen. And, of course, even then, it's just an NHL backup goalie.
So most likely,
those
Matt,
aren't moving the needle for you in terms of upper-end roster players.
Most likely, Matt, I'm going to suggest that my feeling on this matter is the same as my feeling on a Elias Pettersson move is your chance to be best, your top end, your ceiling is higher, holding on to the 3 keepers.
I think you're right.
And holding on to Elias Pettersson.
I think you're right.
That's your best path. There's a risk involved. I'm not saying it's a guarantee. There's a risk involved here. But that's probably your best case scenario.
I would like to hold on to an ice cold can of Yellow Dog or Neighborhood because it's a beautiful day out there and sitting on the patio as the sun beats down.
How about you hold on to a new can? And you're going to have to sit down and maybe stay seated for this one because today they've unveiled a new beer.
Sweet.
You know the High Five.
Of course.
The hazy pale ale.
It's a big one.
Well, you ain't seen nothing until you've seen a High 10.
Oh, no. What has he done?
Double hazy IPA.
Double?
Classic, bright, fresh, vibrant hop elixir has been turned up a notch. Bigger flavor, bigger aroma, bigger energy. A beer made for those who want to go all in. We've been talking about rolling dice and gambling. There you go. The High 10.
Well,
double hazy from Yellow Dog.
I mean, you're not going to see through a High 5. A High 10, I mean, forget about it. Layers and layers. Look forward to sampling that. The Canucks have the first addition to Adam Foote's staff, according to Thomas Drance, who says that former Boston and Chicago assistant coach Kevin Dean will be joining the Canucks.
This had been rumored for some time. He says it's a done deal.
Yeah. Now, we had talked about with Foote's staff, it would be great if he could bring somebody in who has NHL head coaching experience. Dean is not that. He has been a head coach at the ECHL level, but an assistant at the NHL level and at the AHL level. A defensive specialist. He coached in the Bruins organization when Jake DeBrusk was there, but also as they saw the rise of several young defensemen there, Charlie McAvoy, who had a lot of pedigree, Brandon Carlo, who did very well as a second-round pick and became a darn good NHL defenseman, Grzelcyk. There's been a few others in Boston that have taken strides. Alex Vlasic in Chicago this past season, young defenseman who took significant strides. I think they were hoping for more out of Korchinski as a top 10 pick. But so there's a resume there of some good work with young defensemen. I got to say, in terms of Adam Foote's staff and the composition, this was the position that I was least concerned about because, of course, Adam Foote has been working with the defense, even joked at his press conference he'd like to kind of still work with the defense. So I think you have head coaching oversight there and an area of expertise that you don't have with the forward group. But if he's a well-respected NHL assistant and there was some degree of market for him, then it's a good hire. Hard to pin down assistant coaching hires.
Yeah.
And, but all you can judge is what you see on paper. And what was Drance's further note? This isn't going to be announced until the entirety of that staff is put together. Is that right?
That's right, yes. Yeah, which shouldn't be terribly far away either. I think you'd want to have a general sense of things by the end of the Stanley Cup final. unless you're really eyeing somebody on one of these rosters. But, yeah, we'll see.
Okay, Kevin Dean. Oh, let's bring this up, this poster. So the Canucks are marketing for season ticket memberships, of course, as they do every year around this time. So this was an Instagram post, secure your 25-26 membership. All together, the slogan, we're better with you behind us. So I see a couple of fans there. I see Quinn Hughes front and center. I see Kiefer Sherwood above the cap. I see Jake DeBrusk. I see Connor Garland. Who don't I see, Blake?
Yeah, EP.
Is that a little odd? Or is that finally marketing and hockey ops aligning and hockey ops going, wait a second, don't put Elias on the poster just yet. Let's wait till July 1st until we start marketing Elias Pettersson as a Vancouver Canuck for next season.
Well, if it's not that, Matt, if it's either that or
someone in marketing goes, Elias ain't selling shit this year. Let's put other guys on there.
But neither is Jake DeBrusk. Yeah. Connor Garland, Kiefer Sherwood, I guess fan favorites to some degree. Mm-hmm. But there's what is terribly wrong with Elias Pettersson's contribution to the team, but the relationship between him and the team, period. If it's not a conscious hockey ops nix, because we don't know he's going to be a part of this whole thing, why on God's green earth isn't the highest paid player on the team, the guy who should be the face of the team, why isn't he on a poster for season tickets? He should be the guy selling tickets. So if it was a conscious effort by the sales team to not put him on, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. This is a team that does not have a whole lot of sellable players. Mm-hmm. Elias Pettersson, I'm sorry, has got to be at the top of that list. Now, whether you just merely want him to be, need him to be, or he is, he's got to be on that poster.
Well, and this is where I think Patrick Alvin's comments at that year-end media availability resonate. Sitting here today, I definitely want to keep all my options open. And then he talked about how they still believe in Elias Pettersson. And then he came back to, I'd be stupid not to keep options open. I think if you hear that in any quarter of the organization, the message has to be, look, there are no guarantees that Elias Pettersson is going to be here next year. So whether it's a hockey ops nix, as you say, or just, hey, we remember what Alvin said in April, let's not go there with number 40 because who knows what could happen over the next 3.5 weeks. And then lastly.
And as Still 46 in the chat says, Garland and Sherwood both have 1 year left on their contracts.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so they could be could be Canucks for 8 more months.
You could play this game all the way down the line with few exceptions, right? Because, most general managers will tell you, everybody here has a price. Nobody's untouchable. Quinn Hughes might be untouchable, but even then, with what we
but here's
heard from. So, I think there's a reasonable limit where you step in and you have to say, okay, well, he's under contract. He had a good year. Let's put him on the poster.
Okay, but Elias Pettersson's probably, if you talk about sold jerseys on the Canucks right now, Hughes is second behind Hughes?
You mean Elias is second behind
Yeah.
Hughes? Yeah. But now longevity with the organization, I think, probably matters there as well. But, yeah, I think that's fair.
Still, I would think current orders for name-plated Canucks jerseys.
Now? The last month sort of thing?
In the last 6 months, yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I would wonder if, possibly, because
just by sheer the casual Matt is still.
The other thing is you're selling to a lot of kids who aren't,
fastidious,
who aren't swinging with the highs and lows. Like, kid adopts Elias Pettersson as his favorite player, then that's that.
Last I'll say on this poster, it's just a poster after all. But I will say this: that in the world of 15 seconds, and you forget what happened 15 seconds ago. Put Elias Pettersson there. If he's traded, guess what? no one's going to remember. But you had him on the poster.
Redo the poster.
Yeah, you redo the poster. It'll be ready in about 11 seconds.
Okay. Rod Brindamore of Campbell River, British Columbia, the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, spoke today as the Canes did their season-ending media availability. And Rod said he has reflected on the handshake line and the matter that came up with Florida head coach Paul Maurice. You may remember there's some words exchanged there, and Maurice was very complimentary, saying, look, he asked Rod not to go in the handshake line because he doesn't believe coaches belong there, that it's reserved for players, that he prefers the aesthetic of just the players getting together, and felt like coaches somehow got in there because they wanted to be on TV, because it wasn't the case back when he first started coaching in the NHL. And Brindamore says, upon reflection, that, I brought this up last week with you and Merrick, he's had some impactful moments as a coach, quote unquote, in that line. And so he says he is going to participate going forward as a sign of respect. He said he followed Paul Maurice's lead because Maurice's team won the series. But he says coaches are right there in the battle with players. And he mentioned that there are several ex-Carolina Hurricanes players on that Florida team, and that he would have liked to have shook their hands. Look, I don't think there's a wrong answer here.
No,
I heard
not.
Maurice's mouth. Made a lot of sense to me. I read what Rod had to say today in Raleigh, and that makes sense to me as well.
Yeah, I don't have a super strong opinion, and not one is emphatically right or wrong. I will say Rod might be a little bit tainted because he is a former player.
Well, but a lot of coaches are, though.
Yeah, no,
right?
I'm saying,
yeah.
But for him to voice it, because he's been in that lineup, he'd like to be in that lineup again because he's been a player. Maurice is neither here nor there.
Well, but he said as a coach, and the discussion we had with Merrick last week, like, if you're a young British Columbia hockey player at one point, and you grow up and you find yourself in a handshake line with Pat Quinn when he's coaching the Leafs, like, that's, you're in a handshake line with Scotty Bowman, or, just one of these coaching giants of the game. I can understand impactful moments. And put it this way, Blake, I think there are more coaches out there that are going to follow Rod Brindamore's lead on this than Paul Maurice's lead on this.
Yeah, I saw some people, as I predicted, I saw a lot of people think that Paul Maurice was making himself a tall poppy by taking himself out and making the kerfuffle. I think that was the opposite of what he intended. I think he thought, I don't need the spotlight of being in that lineup.
If he is, it was a one-shot deal. I mean, he's hoping, long term, he's hoping not to have the shine of being in that line. And I also don't disagree with the point he made that, do these Carolina Hurricanes players, okay, maybe shaking the hand of the opposing head coach, I mean, maybe it's actually good business for you, you develop a little bit of a rapport, or at least to have a moment with a guy who could be your boss somewhere down the road.
It's so fleeting.
It's so fleeting. And also, as Maurice outlined, you got all the other coaches' hands to shake, too.
I almost think the NHL should. Now it's becoming awkward of do we, don't we? Like,
you think the NHL should come down and mandate one way or the other?
Yeah, and it's not a mandate. It's let's just be consistent here, guys. Like, it's just weird if one team's coach is in the lineup and the other team's coach is not. Like, come on.
Well, put it this way. Based on what I heard from Brindamore today, if Carolina and Florida meet in the playoffs again next year, Brindamore is getting in that line. Let's get to today's menu, brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games home and away, and an even better spot for your upcoming party or event. If you need a venue for a team building or summer sociable, check out Greta. The fantastic street food menu, the birria tacos, amazing, as is the smash burger. The arcade that encircles the bar, you can compete against one another or find a quiet corner to play your game. For info, to book your event, go to gretabar.com, 50 West Cordova. Greta, let the games begin. Is Cam next?
Cam's next.
Okay. Cam Robinson is next. Like we said, he's got some, he's done some digging, some reporting on Elias Pettersson, his offseason training, and what has been the trouble in the past. And Jeff Patterson as well. Jeff, before he heads off on a little vacation, he, of course, was hosting RinkWide Vancouver last night. and himself, Dave Hall, now Irf Gaffar, have all been in the mix. They're breaking down these Abbotsford Canuck playoff games. They'll be back at it again tomorrow, just without Jeff, on RinkWide Vancouver. That's coming up on the program. Later, we'll talk a little BC Lions as they head into week 1 of the Canadian Football League season, and the Canadian soccer teams are starting to get busy here, both men's and women's.
Yes.
All that is coming up. Time now for a Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. Now, I just cast forward with some futures. It was more informational from me yesterday on the Grey Cup lines for the start of the season in the CFL.
Mm-hmm.
Did you win your bet? Do you remember your bet?
I don't remember my bet.
Of course not.
No, it was a future. It was Canadian Open.
Oh, okay. There you go.
It was Nick Taylor.
Right. Look, I didn't think I'd get here because I didn't think they'd get here. I was really down on the Edmonton Oilers, leaking oil, if you will, heading into the playoffs. But then Kings coach Jim Hiller threw them a lifeline with that grotesque coach's challenge. They come back, they win that series. And now, between that and other events, it's got me thinking, this is the team of destiny. Huh? Can you not see that challenge in round 1 going down in Stanley Cup lore?
Mm-hmm.
Their backs were against it. And then, or Stuart Skinner's reemergence for his hometown team, doing every interview at every step along the process, good or bad. Gemma Carson-Smith was telling me from Canadian Press, because she's covered some of the Oilers games last year and this year during the Cup run. She's like, Stuart Skinner is available in the morning of a game day one-on-one. Like, you can walk over to Stuart Skinner the morning of a Stanley Cup playoff game and say, hey, Stu, can I get you here for a minute on the side? Oh, yeah, sure. What do you want? So anyways, I hate to do it, but I'm picking the Oilers to win the Cup at minus 130. Are you Florida or are you Edmonton? You going to make us wait till tomorrow?
It's minus 30 on the game line. Is that what you're looking at?
Are you looking at series? I had the futures.
It could match.
No, I got the futures line to win series. Oilers minus 130, Panthers at plus 110. I'm going Oilers.
Those are the exact same lines for game 1. That's funny. I'm looking at the Oilers to look at least
the difference. That's the home ice advantage difference, right?
Yeah. I'm looking at least for the Oilers to look good in game number 1. I think they've got their heads and their excitement in check after being here last year. And I think they ride the wave of momentum of their fans and everything to a victory with the empty netter. So Oilers minus 1.5 gives me plus 185.
That's tomorrow. It's tomorrow. You know, we were on the golf course yesterday, and I was saying the worst part is not that there's no hockey tonight coming out of a weekend with no hockey. There's no hockey Tuesday night either.
Yeah.
You know?
Gotta wait. Making us wait, but hey, at least we're not, an NBA show where it was even longer a wait.
We were one Dallas Stars victory away from waiting till Saturday, Blake.
Yeah.
And going a full week. Want to get in on the action for the Stanley Cup playoffs at Bet365? They got you. Series winners, game props, player props, totals, money line, Conn Smythe winner, whatever your bet. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Must be 19 or older.
There is a little bit of a breaking news on this regard. McDavid left practice early.
What? No.
Yeah, yesterday. But he was back on the ice today.
My goodness.
He did take practice.
No, but
today.
I'm actually being genuine there because that's a guy who's worth your time. Right?
Yeah.
Like this series is entirely different if he can't go. Cam Robinson, next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. This next guest brought to you by the Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, now open for the 2025 season and accepting bookings for any time in 2025. Online right now. Lock those in. If you have a group of 12 or more, ask about the Harrison Price midweek specials. Groups of 12 or more. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They're going to take good care of you there, and the Bears might even tend the flag for you. Let them know. WhistlerGolf.com/groups. Follow the Bears at Whistler Golf. Here's Cam Robinson, the Director of Content Film Scouting for Elite Prospects. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, boys. It's a great day today. Today is the release of the Elite Prospects Draft Guide. Ooh, yeah, we are T-minus like under 2 hours for this puppy. It gets bigger and better every year. Yeah, that's right. I think we dropped over 5,000 scouting reports this year. It's insane. God. It's insane.
How many pages is this sucker?
I should have checked that out for you, but I'm not sure the exact number this year. But it's gotten to the point now where I can confidently say that I feel like we do a deeper dive than a lot of organizations do. Like this is pro level work, and then on like the top end of the pro level work too. So it's go get it, people.
So you're pretty confident that players will be drafted this year? Is that?
I'm feeling that vibe. Yes, I think some guys are going to hear their names called this year. Yeah.
Okay, but Cam, what can you tell us? What can you tell us about Mackenzie Stewart, Canucks 7th-round pick in 2014?
Yeah, that's right. Hey,
he was not in any guide then.
Yes. No, Blake and I are on draft row in Philadelphia. Mackenzie Stewart. He did not appear in any literature, and we had Bibles stacked on the table.
When's the last time you remember a player drafted? You're like, I don't know him.
I have no idea who this guy is. There's got to be an obscure Russian here and there, right?
Oh yeah, no, they're every year, and they announce it, and I'm like, I don't even know how to spell that. Trying to look up the name on EP2, and it's like, no, there's definitely kids that, especially like you can't watch them all, but no, there's always a few that stump me on draft day too.
All right, we'll get to draft here in a second, but first you've done some digging on Elias Pettersson and his offseason training. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so I've been interested in this ever since I reported there, a few weeks back that the training back home in Stockholm maybe wasn't the best for him or wasn't showing visible signs of improvement. And so, I reached back out and he's back there in Stockholm and no visible change to the offseason training setup, at least on ice. He might be working with different guys off ice that I don't know, that I'm not aware of. But, that group hasn't been able to impact his skating technique and balance over the last 2 summers. So I'm not sure why they think it's going to change now. And that tendonitis that he's been suffering from, I'm told, is a direct result from his skating style, his technique. And so I reached out to a couple physios, to a high-end skating coach, and had them kind of break down his skating stride and what may be causing this. And so, I'll try not to nerd out too much here. My wife's the massage therapist, so she's got the anatomy and physiology thing down here. But the physio basically said is that the pes anacerius would be the prime suspect. So it's a group of tendons, and it's basically it's either a bursitis or it's going to be a tendonitis. It's going to cause pain. It's going to cause inflammation. Stiffness, all that kind of stuff, especially it's an overuse injury. So it's when you're putting overuse stress on that knee joint because of how he skates. And it's not something that you can really have surgery on. It's kind of a rest and wait situation, which we know he's been kind of dealing with. Sometimes they use cortisone shots like that. But the real crux of it is that he needs to fix it. It needs to be fixed so that he can last, 10 more years. And if he doesn't, then the next thing that happens after the tendonitis, I'm told, is that it moves on to your hips and your lower back if there hasn't already been some issues there. So it's just, I thought that was noteworthy that he is training with the same group on ice. Probably not realistic to expect that skating stride to be changed up too much if we're basing off his last 2 summers of work. But hopefully they can find a path to get past that tendonitis, because if they don't change the skating style, I'm told by professionals, it won't fix itself. It'll be a consistent issue.
There's no knowledge by Patterson himself that the stride is what's causing this, though?
I haven't talked to Elias about that. It'd be interesting to try to get a hold of him and see if anyone has mentioned that to him. But it is a little, if it hasn't been, it's a little concerning that his reps and that the Canucks themselves haven't been able to identify this, because I sent some video and I didn't say anything else. And 2 different physios came up with that pes anaceriness as being the likely cause of the tendonitis. And so you'd think that the professionals around the Canucks health and staff would be able to identify that as well and be like, you need to change things. And we know that Elias Pettersson is capable capable of changing things. He remade his entire shot post draft. So he's not below that kind of ability. So I do think it's just maybe they need to get more hands on with what he's doing in the offseason to try to correct that.
We began this Canucks season with Popliteus, and now towards the end of the league year, Pez Enserinus, meaning goose's foot in Latin. I wonder
there you go.
Yeah. Refers to a group of conjoined tendons on the medial inner side of the tibia, where the sartorius gracilis and semitendinosus muscles attach.
There they are. Yeah.
The tendons form a goose-like foot shape when they converge on the shin bone.
Okay. All right. Biology class is over. Anatomy class.
I hated that in school. That was a tough one at uni.
Yeah.
Beneath these tendons is the
Stop it. Stop it.
fluid-filled sack here.
Let's ask the poll question then, because we're assuming Patterson will be available. We're assuming he's the first-line center at this point. But
Is he available or is he the first-line center?
Well, both. No, I mean
available to
the
play,
team,
no, for trade. Okay. All right.
Healthy and available. Do you have full confidence that they get a bona fide second-line center, not a third-line center that they hope can fill the role? Do they get a second-line center here in this offseason?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they will move heaven and earth to get a second-line center. And whether that's a young guy like Marco Rossi, or if they go out and they, try to steal a guy like Brock Nelson away from signing his hometown Minnesota Wild, I think that they're going to look at every potential avenue to fill that role with a proper second-line center. You can't go the same route like you just did with Phil Peedle, a third-liner that's masquerading as a second-liner and one with, a lengthy concussion history. They need to get this right, and by all accounts, and Jim Rutherford has not been shy in sharing this, right, is that they're willing to pay. And they know that it's going to be a competitive market to land someone like that, so they're gearing up, and I do believe that that's going to get done. And I think most likely we see it done at or during the draft, like in the days leading up or on the draft floor.
Is the cost futures or is the cost a roster player, do you think?
Depends on who you're dealing with, right? Like if you're dealing with the Wild, maybe they would like something a little more now. I have heard that they'd be interested in something like, say it's a Tom Wielander and a 15th overall pick, and then you're getting Rossi plus something back that could be intriguing for them, which is more of a futures package. But I'm sure they're listening on things that would, someone who could step in right away and be their second line center instead of Marco Rossi, someone who's not 5'9", that they'd be open up to a pure hockey deal. So it really depends on who you're working with, what kind of package you're going to have to give up. But for the Canucks, they don't have a lot of roster players that hold a lot of value that they can move off of, right? No. It's like, is it Connor Garland? I don't think he has a ton of value around the league either.
You mentioned Brock Nelson. What do you think of the fit there? What kind of a player is he?
He's a good player. He's not a young player by any means, and he's looking for his retirement contract, right? It didn't work in Colorado and after the trade, and that just happens so often, especially when a player's been with one organization for so long, and then to move at the end of the year and airlift in, and it just doesn't fit. From all indications, though, his number one priority is to land in Minnesota and be where he grew up and finish his career there. He's going to look for a multi-year deal, and he's 33, 34 years old, so not a perfect fit for Vancouver, but it could be a nice little stopgap. The problem is that the stopgap for what, right? Is they don't have that young center that's like, okay, he's only 19, he's not ready yet. Give him a few years, and then he can step into that role. So they have a lot of work to do if they want to go that route and do a veteran signing to get some young guys to push up in the next couple of years. But I think they'll look to do something similar. The JT Miller trade. Everybody knew Miller needed to come out of Tampa Bay at the time, but that was a really excellent identification by the Canucks staff to get a player that was ready to pop. And I'm sure that's exactly what they're looking for now. Someone in their mid-20s that maybe hasn't had the opportunity, maybe wasn't mature physically or emotionally yet to get to that next level, but now maybe they are, and you can peel them away from a situation where a team's capped out or something like that. And unfortunately, I don't have names. I've gone through the list, but I'm hoping that the Canucks do have a group of names there that they're looking at.
Well, we just saw another name added to the list here. There's reports that Martin Necas isn't super happy in Colorado. Do you think it's real? Do you think that price is just too high for the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, it wouldn't be cheap. But it's like he's He's an interesting one because, he wasn't happy in Carolina. He wasn't going to stay there long term. Now he goes to Colorado. I'm not so happy in Colorado. It's like, what does he want? Does he want to just be a number one center? Is that what his goal is? Because he's primarily played the wing for the most part now in Carolina and in Colorado. It's like, what exactly does he want? Does he want a huge ticket? So then now you're paying assets to get him, and you have to pay him a big price tag to keep him on. Yeah. So it's not, he's kind of wedging himself into a corner himself there. So I'm not, on paper, it's a great fit. And that offer that was rumored that Carolina offered for Patterson at the time is probably the best they're going to get now until or if Elias Pettersson comes back to a level that he was previously. So that Necas, Kotkaniemi and a pick, or Roslovic and a pick is probably the best they were going to get at the time. And now you probably couldn't get that if you move Patterson now.
Do you think Carolina is still interested? And what about Buffalo?
I do think Carolina, they have been highly interested in him for years. And I don't think that they are swayed by this down season. I'm sure they are, if they were looking to buy him, that they're like, oh, great, we can get him for a cheaper price now. But they need a superstar. And, they had one for a hot minute there with Mikko Rantanen, and then they lost him. But you really saw that in the playoffs, is that, they have such a high quality collection of players, and Sebastian Aho is a star, but they don't have a superstar. And I don't, is Elias Pettersson still a superstar? He's obviously shown he can be, but I think they absolutely would still be interested in him. Buffalo needs to do something, and they need to do something right now. So Elias Pettersson does make sense for them again if they agree that this is a guy who can get back to that 90, 100-point level. And we know that JJ Paterka is potentially a trade chip, and they're not going to trade him for futures. That makes zero sense. So if they're going to package up a guy like Paterka or Bo Byram, something like that, for an Elias Pettersson, that's something that could maybe make sense for both sides, except for Vancouver would have zero centers. So it's tough.
And almost too many defensemen at that point for getting Byram, too.
Yeah. So Paterka can't play the middle at all, huh, Cam?
He's a winger, in my opinion, yeah.
All right. Okay. Moving steadily along, who does Elite Prospects have at number 15 in their overall draft rankings?
Oh, I gotta pull up my sheet here. Yeah. Who did we end up putting at number 15? Let's bring it up here.
And this is a consensus, is it? How do they measure each of these slots?
This is our list. This is our list. So we have Radim Murtka at number 15 on our final board here. So the 6'6" right shot defenseman, mobile, huge stopping potential. I don't think they go D at that spot, if I'm guessing what Vancouver do, but like right around it, at 14 we have Lyndon Lakovic, a 6'4" goal scoring winger, who I think played on a bad Moose Jaw team that was coming down after their run to the, being WHL champs on the downswing. So he didn't have a ton to work with. I think this kid could pop. Like, he could be a 30-goal scorer in the NHL one day. So he's a really interesting one. On the other side, we got Braden Coots at 16. We've talked about him before, really pacey, speed-driven guy, maybe more of a middle sixer, third-line center sort of thing. But I think Carter Bear is going to slip down the board. Maybe he won't be there at 15, but there's going to be some really intriguing options, especially in the middle of the ice there. And that's, I think, should be the priority for Vancouver if they do end up keeping that pick.
Another guy in and around those parts expected to land is Victoria Royals forward Cole Reshny, although now he's University of North Dakota. Forward Cole Reshny. The Royals with a couple of defections to UND, and then a top draft defenseman, Jackson Smith of the Western League Tri-Cities, is rumored to be heading to Penn State. Cam, what's going on here? It looks like the NCAA is raiding the WHL of talent right now.
Oh, and the exodus is just beginning, boys. So yes, Reshny and Verhoff going to UND. That was big, and it's so tough for the Royals too, right? Is that they were bad for so long, and then they finally have built this team that overachieved a little bit this year, and they're fully being built for next season. Like 25-26 was the year they were really going to push, and they just lost their two best players. So that's out the window now. Verhoff going is especially noteworthy because he's a top 2026 eligible. It could be a top 3, top 5 pick next year, and we're going to see a few other top 2026 draft eligibles move, including one Gavin McKenna we all expect. So with Reshny though, he's an interesting one because he had such an incredible second half of the season, really strong playoffs, one of the hottest players in the CHL down the stretch, but he's slight and he's not like super dynamic. So as a centerman and with his body style, his body frame and his style, it's like I do wonder if he's going to be able to be slick enough, if he's skilled enough to really be that guy in like a pure second line center role. So we're kind of hedging him a little bit lower than the Canucks picks, but because he finished so strong and he did have really good U18s too, wouldn't surprise me at all if he was even gone by 15 too. So and that's where that discrepancy, the disparity in this draft between each team's list is going to be massive, more so than any year in recent memory.
Overall, there might just be an initial fascination with the NCAA transfer possibility for WHL players, but at the extreme, might there be a possibility where the CHL leagues are really not using the 19-year-olds and the 20-year-olds certainly slots on the roster?
This is going to be like a foundational shift, a seismic shift in junior hockey, and it's going to trickle up and it's going to trickle down. And I fully believe that, yes, there will be a bit of a culture shock for some kids that are moving from the CHL to the NCAA, and they're thinking like, hey, I get to play in front of these big barns with all these student athletes, there's students in the crowd and everything. But yeah, you also have to take classes and you have to keep up a certain level of academia. So some will flame out, but I do think that the CHL will become more of a league for your elite 16, 17-year-olds and like pretty good 18-year-olds. And then the NCAA will be the elite, 17 to 19-year-olds will all kind of house themselves over there. So the CHL will have to get younger. The USHL will take a hit because the American kids now can come to the CHL when they're younger and then still go to school. So it's going to shift the BCHL is in big trouble. So the trickle down all the way. The AHL, right? They're used to getting all these kids that age out of junior at 20. Well, now all these 20-year-olds will be like, well, I'm just going to go to school. And they move down there, down south as a 20-year-old, maybe if they're not top prospects. Now the AHL loses all those 20, 21, 22-year-olds that can now step straight into the NHL out of college. So I can't emphasize enough how big a change this rule is going to make for all of hockey.
One thing just to keep in mind, we see this in basketball with the one and dones. We see this with NCAA football players who are declaring for the draft. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is stay academically eligible through the fall semester, because your season is going to end before the grades come in for the spring semester. So a lot of guys, they get to January, they don't even go to class anymore because they are
if they're going to be a one and done.
Yes. Basketball one and dones and the football players in their draft eligible year, the ones that know that
that's
they're
interesting. Yeah.
Just keep that in.
I spoke with David Carl, the head coach of Denver there, and Team USA World Junior coach, and he was talking about how they've got their new recruits, and not all schools do this, but some do. They bring them in August, and they have them do summer school for a month before the season starts, so that they can kind of get like a bit of a head start and get without all the sports stuff going on too. Yeah.
The serious NCAA football and basketball players typically do the summer session just to lighten the class load for their season.
Also, people should know that when you are a high-end athlete and you are picking your classes, and the coach looks at your class list and they'll say, no, you're not taking biology. No. You're not taking that. You're going to take
econometry, calculus. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Not on my watch.
Mm-hmm. Drama, philosophy.
Yes.
Stuff. Weight training.
Sports management's always a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Awesome stuff, Cam. Thank you. Until next week.
Okay. Talk soon, boys.
Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center.
And you know who would
pausing.
What's that?
Good pausing there.
Dramatic pause.
Pausing.
Because that's what the BZ4X deserves, is a dramatic pause. Ladies and gentlemen, the BZ4X. It's the latest installment of the Toyota electric lineup, and it'll blow you away. That's why they're so confident. If you come in and take one for a test drive, you will fall in love, and you will never visit a gas station ever again. Right now, you can get $5,000 in incentives. You can get financing on the LE all-wheel drive edition, which is quintessentially BC, for 0.99% over 36 months. Go check it out. Your local Pacific Toyota dealer, shoptoyota.ca.
Jeff Patterson covers the Canucks for us, the host of RinkWide Vancouver. Well, at least through 3 games. He's off on a float here, but he'll be back.
He you were very conservative, I thought, in planning your vacation. Surely no hockey will be played in early June.
Canucks-affiliated hockey will be played in early June, but
into the second week of June. Come
yeah,
on.
Exactly.
Let's be real here.
So Irf Gaffar is going to sit in for Jeff here on RinkWide Vancouver as they tackle the Abbotsford Canucks in their Calder Cup playoff run, which suffered a defeat last night deep in the heart of Texas. They go down 5-2 to the Dallas Stars affiliate, the best of 7 now at 2-1 for the Abbotsford Canucks. Jeff, tell us about the game.
Yeah, it wasn't Abbotsford hockey the way that Manny Malhotra wants his team to play. First period was dizzying with 5 goals, and we've talked every time I've been on with you, this penalty kill that was 39 for 40, got torched for a pair in the first period, and gave up a short-handed goal in the first as well. So Abbotsford lost the special teams battle in a big way, but it was just a game trading chances in the first 20 minutes, breakaways and 2-on-1s. Again, that is not the way the Abbotsford Canucks are constructed. They are built to win games 2-0 and 2-1, and they have done that throughout the playoffs and earlier in the series as well. They were getting outshot 15-3 at one point in the first period. And saying all of that, they scored a goal in the final minute of the first and got to the dressing room down 3-2. They were totally fine in that situation, and yet just mounted nothing really the rest of the way. And goal in the second period, and then another shorthanded goal in the third, and 5-2 was the final score. So, look, Texas was in both the games out in the Valley. I think the Texas Stars left Abbotsford thinking, yeah, we're down 2-0, but we played every bit as well and probably deserve a better fate. And so it was a question of Abbotsford doing a nice job limiting Texas's top guns, but best players are best players for a reason. And they showed up and they got into the series last night. And this is my concern now for Abbotsford. Abbotsford still leads the series 2-1. They're in good shape. But there is a middle six crisis with this Abbotsford team, again, built to win 2-0. And that puts a ton of pressure on Artur Silovs. It puts a lot of pressure on guys like Linus Karlsson to continue to score. And guess what? Linus Karlsson had a goal and an assist. He's been in on 5 of the 6 goals that Abbotsford has scored in this series. The biggest problem, though, is that 4 of the 6 goals have come from defensemen guys. Linus Karlsson and Ty Mueller, the only forwards to score for the Abbotsford Canucks through 3 games of this series. So, a lot of people wondering about Jonathan Lekkerimäki. Yeah, he's gone ice cold. Got 1 goal in the playoffs. He has no points in 5. But it goes way deeper than just Jonathan Lekkerimäki. Max Sasson has 1 point in his last 8 games. He leads the American Hockey League in shots on goal in these playoffs and has 3 goals and 6 points in 15 games. I expected a whole lot more from Max. Phil DiGiuseppe scored a big goal in the elimination game against Colorado in the last round. But in the empty net, he got an empty netter that night as well. Those are his only 2 points in the last 8 games. So that's a second line. The way that this Abbotsford team is constructed. Sammy Blais, how much did I rave about Sammy Blais in the early going, guys?
Yeah.
Sammy Blais scored 2 goals in the Canucks playoff opener. He has 1 goal since. And that was 12 games ago.
Yeah.
So it's Blais, it's DiGiuseppe, it's Sasson, it's Chase Waters, it's Tristan Nielsen. Those are the middle 6 along with Lekkerimäki, and they're just getting absolutely nothing right now. And all of a sudden, Texas's best players are starting to show up. So there needs to be a response from the Abbotsford Canucks.
And Ratu's gone for the foreseeable future as well. The second injury, was it a re-aggravation? Do you have any sense if it's a re-aggravation?
There's just
or
no
something
information. Complete cone of silence around this team, especially when it comes to injuries. So you judge them by who's in the lineup when they get to the warm-up, and that's about the best you can do at the American Hockey League level.
Yeah, a cone of silence around a minor league team. Anyways.
Yeah.
Lekkerimäki, Sasson, Blais, all -2 last night. 5 goals against She Loves. How many were on him, Jeff?
You know what? I didn't think any. 2 power play goals, the 2 shorthanded goals, and the 1 5-on-5 goal. And boy, 5-on-5 scoring has been at a premium. Each team has 1 5-on-5 goal over the last 2 games. But the 5-on-5 goal was a 3-on-2. He stopped the initial shot, and the rebound was there. So it was a ton of point-blank, one-timers, time and space. I do wonder if Texas has found something in this Abbotsford penalty kill that no other opponent has been able to unearth yet. Now, it was just 1 game, but it was shocking, quite frankly. It was a blow to the system to see Texas score twice on the power play in the first period. And so you just wonder, the opener of this series, each team had one power play. And last night, refs were quick on the whistles. They weren't getting away with anything. And I don't think Abbotsford wants to turn this into a special teams battle. Again, Texas right now has 4 of the top 5 scorers in the American Hockey League playoffs. That's what Abbotsford's up against. So you got to hold those guys in check. You don't want to take penalties and put them on the power play, especially now that their top guys are starting to feel it. Mate Blumel, who led the American Hockey League with 39 goals in the regular season, he got his first 2 of the series last night. He had 7 shots in the hockey game. Look, Artur Silovs has been a miracle worker. I think he's raised the bar to the point that you just expect that he's going to get shutouts and give up 1 goal. But guess what? He can't stop them all. Last night was the first time in these playoffs that he's surrendered 5, and it's just the second time that he's given up more than 3 in a game. So they're 15 games into this thing. It paints a picture of just how well he has played. But you get deep in the playoffs, you're facing good opponents, they are going to score some goals. And so now it's a question of, can Abbotsford limit the Texas attack and get it back to those lower scoring, lower event games? Or if Texas starts to pull away, is there any way that Abbotsford can match? So again, Abbotsford leads the series. This is not a time for a panic button. Nobody should be looking for the panic button here. But Texas probably feels it's got some momentum on its side now with another home game coming up. The one thing I will say, the Abbotsford Canucks have earned every benefit of the doubt with the way that they have played since March the 1st, the win streak, their ability to respond, the coaching changes, the tactical changes that Manny Malhotra has made. Again, I look forward to seeing the response here on Wednesday because Manny, for the most part, has pushed every right button in these playoffs. And so he gets a day off here to go over some tape, try to figure some things out. And again, this team has been resilient. They've lost 5 games outright in their last 33 hockey games. So I'm giving them every chance to bounce back. But ultimately, we can talk about it. They're the ones that have to get out there on the ice and do it.
Danila Klimovich was drafted largely because of his performance at the World Under-18 Championships. They took place in Texas. We tap into his Texas love and see if he can provide some spark because it's just on Linus Karlsson right now. So, Jeff, is Linus Karlsson just doing the same sort of net front presence? How is Linus Karlsson continuing to contribute for this team? And, as we chronicle his likely ascension into a full-time NHL role for next season, are you seeing more from him? What are you getting?
His goal last night parked himself in front of the net in Arshdeep Bains. I thought he had scored his first of the playoffs, but the shot actually hit Linus Karlsson. But that happens when you plant yourself in front of the net to take the goaltender's eyes away. Made nice play on the initial goal as well, he and Bains. Arshdeep's coming along now, and that's some good news for the Abbotsford Canucks. He's been in on 4 of the 6 goals that they have scored. So again, it goes back to that notion of the top line certainly carrying this hockey club offensively, but for Linus Karlsson, it just feels to me like this willingness to be involved and make every shift count. And he's got enough finish and got a little good fortune last night, but he's got that nose for the net. When the puck's around it, he's able to find it. And his goals aren't necessarily pretty, but at this point of the proceedings, it doesn't matter what they look like. It's just a question of do they score. And I think it's important too. When I talked about the struggles of the middle 6 guys, the Abbotsford Canucks are 6 wins away from hoisting the Calder Cup. Like, if Nate Smith scored every goal the rest of the way for the Abbotsford Canucks and they won, nobody in that room would give a damn, right? No. Like, they're that close. But it's going to be tough, and Nate Smith has not done an awful lot offensively. So, it's a lineup that has these veterans and guys that have been longtime AHLers. You'd love Lekkerimäki to rise up, but it's just been so quiet around him. And 5 shots on goal in the last 5 games, more than the goals. It's I want to see volume shooting. We say the same thing with Brock Besser at the NHL level. Lekkerimäki, get the puck on your stick, be selfish, don't look to set up others. You've got this God-given talent to beat goaltenders with a shot. Use it. Take those shots, make goaltenders make saves. And unfortunately, right now, just a lack of involvement for Jonathan Lekkerimäki.
Well, quiet around him, but also quiet around the Abbotsford Canucks when they lose games, Jeff. What's going on here? They have a content team on the road, but they just, after losses, don't publish much?
Yeah, I don't know what the organizational philosophy is, but it does sort of feel like, okay, if we don't acknowledge the loss, maybe it didn't happen. But if I go to the American Hockey League website, I do see that the series is 2-1. It is strange. Like, this deep into the playoffs, I want to know what Matty Malhotra thought of the loss. I want to know what he saw, what he, where he thought the game got away from them. And I think you owe it to the fans at this stage, and especially when you've got personnel. I know earlier in the playoffs, they traveled lightly and they didn't have a full staff out there, but they're down to the Final Four now. And so if that is a directive from above that let's not acknowledge the losses, that just seems like a really curious way to go about business.
On to the Vancouver Canucks, Jeff. We're asking on our Bogey Juice poll question today, do you have confidence they'll be able to land a top 2 center this summer? What says you?
Yeah, I think that they're going to pull out all stops and be aggressive and make a trade. Is it going to be the right fit for this hockey club? Is it going to be a guy that absolutely moves the needle? That has yet to be determined, and it's going to be about the asking price and what they're willing to part with. But I think Jim Rutherford has laid his cards bare here, and that's kind of the way that he operates. He's not afraid to say things and speak his mind. It's not tipping off the rest of the league. The rest of the league can look at this Canucks roster and recognize that it's not good enough. And so now it's a question of playing, let's make a deal. I mean, I get a chuckle out of all the reports out of just about every market that every GM is going to be aggressive this offseason. And I expect that the Canucks will be in that group as well. So I don't see them swinging and missing. Like, I don't think that's an option. They've got to get in this trading game, whether it's ahead of the draft, whether it's draft weekend, whether it's in those days leading up to free agency. But Rutherford himself has said, like, if we have money to spend in free agency, which basically I think is a bit of a tell that, they're planning to do their business early. That's been a hallmark of Jim Rutherford throughout his managerial career. So I'd vote yes on the poll question, but right now, with the Stanley Cup final starting up again, I'm not surprised that it's relatively quiet in terms of linking the Canucks to actual names and potential trading partners, but that will fire up the minute that the Stanley Cup is doled out.
We've already seen some people concerned. Yes, they're going to get their guy, but it's going to come at a cost that people will not like. Do you feel like that's what it's going to be?
Yeah, I'm expecting that they're prepared to sort of empty the war chest here, and they need it. We know that, and that's all of that is around not knowing what they have in Elias Pettersson and what version of Elias Pettersson would show up on the doorstep for training camp, if in fact he's still on the roster. And I guess that's a side story here until his trade protection kicks in. But yeah, like I do anticipate. And so, 15th overall pick in and of itself, I mean, it's an asset, but it's not going to land you what you're looking for. And so it's a question of what are the plus and plus if they have to go that far. And we've certainly kicked around all of the names. And so now it's a question of, what's attractive to your trading partner? What are the Canucks willing to part with? How far are they willing to go? But yeah, I guess as I sit here with weeks out, I am anticipating them paying a significant price to try to upgrade at that center ice position.
Is Matt Barzal the guy then? The Islanders have cap trouble. He can really skate. He's local, can play the middle. What do you think of Barzal?
Yeah, I'm a big fan if he's completely healthy, and I know that that was certainly an issue for him last year. He's a wizard on his blades. He's a ton of fun to watch. People know that about him. The local angle is value added, I suppose, but I don't really care a player's place of origin. If he can come in here and help the hockey club, if there is marketing opportunities and those types of things because he's played here before or lived in these parts and was raised here, that's great. But no, I like a lot about Matt Barzal. Obviously burst onto the scene with an 85-point season as a rookie, won the Rookie of the Year that year. It was always going to be difficult to stay at that level, but I think in the right situations, if this guy is out there running a power play, a big part of a first unit power play, there's no reason to think that he can't be highly, highly productive. So is he the right guy? Maybe. There's enough smoke with the Islanders and the changes that they've made, and Matthew Darche probably, we see that most times a new guy comes in, wants to make a bit of a splash, and put his stamp on the hockey club. I know that we certainly kicked around the idea of Bo Horvat. I think we had differing opinions of whether that was a reality, but I mean, the Islanders can't live in that mushy middle either, right? Like, I do think that they've got to make some things happen there, and so not the most far-fetched idea, I think, to believe that Matt Barzal could be a trade target for the Vancouver Canucks.
Have you done any deep dives on Kevin Dean?
Just anecdotally know that a highly respected guy with a keen eye on the defensive side of the game, worked under Bruce Cassidy in Boston for a bunch of years, was the head coach in Providence, was Jake DeBrusk's head coach in the American Hockey League, and then, of course, would have worked the bench with DeBrusk in Boston, overlapped with the tail end of Zdeno Chara's career, so would have had a chance to work with one of the greats, Charlie McAvoy, as he developed as well. People speak highly of him. I think the Boston experience, coming from an organization like that, lots of good experience there. The last couple of years in Chicago, I'm sure we're trying, so maybe he's ready for a fresh start in that regard. And I think what I like most about Kevin Dean is, and there aren't a lot of these guys, but he was an Atlanta Thrasher briefly in his playing days. In fact, was a teammate of Ray Ferraro's in Atlanta. But a dying breed, certainly. There aren't a lot of guys that can say they were Atlanta Thrashers. But no, he's gone on to a successful coaching career, highly regarded. And I think the assistant coaching game is difficult to assess, right? Like, nobody really knows the value and sort of the roles and the responsibility. I mean, we get the broad brush, but in the day-to-day, it's hard to know the impact and the effect that an assistant coach is having. That said, there are so many vacancies out there right now. Teams are trying to fill staffs, and I think Kevin Dean was going to be in demand. And so I think on that level, you have to look at it as a win that the Vancouver Canucks identified him and seemingly got their guys. So, not doing flips, not running around with confetti cannons, but I think, I think he has. There is the potential for this to be a very good hire for the Vancouver Canucks.
Are you ever running around with confetti cannons, Jeff?
I don't make a practice of it, no. So, fair enough.
So. Maybe we get on the
guilty
boat
as
today.
charged, yes.
Maybe we enjoy your float, enjoy your time off. Look forward to chatting next week.
Yeah, and I certainly hope that the Abbotsford Canucks have punched their ticket to the Calder Cup final and can jump back on RinkWide and championship series. But again, they got to be better than they were last night, and let's hope that they are.
Yeah. Well, we'll hear about their wins. We know that. Thanks, Jeff. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. If you're heading to a game in downtown Vancouver, make a staycation out of it. Book your stay here at the Wall. Enjoy an exclusive Harrison Price rate. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. Call the hotel, 604-331-1000. Use our names. The first team practice for the British Columbia Lions in CFL season 2025 takes place today at the club's North Surrey practice facility. This after the Leos set their roster late Saturday night. Amar Dolman telling us yesterday expects Saturday's home and season opener against Edmonton to sell out. About 1,500 tickets were left as of Monday night, most of them behind the stage. So I just... we're going to get some news filtering in here as the practice week goes ahead. I want to spend a minute here on what I think the BC Lions need to do to get back to a Grey Cup game, where, of course, they have not been since winning the Grey Cup here with Wally Bono back in 2011. So much this season pivots on Nathan Rourke. If he's this guy we saw last year, trouble. If he's the guy we saw in 2022 when he was named the league's most outstanding Canadian player, then I think the Lions can play with anyone.
And that's a big swing, Matt. Like that. We're talking maybe last place in the division if it's last year's guy. We're talking maybe first place in the division if he's the MVP guy.
Yeah. Last place might. Dave Dickinson said today Calgary may have 12 different starters on defense this year.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully better than Calgary, any way you slice it. And boy, how times have changed there, huh?
But I mean, you listen to him, if you go back and listen to Amar Doman, our chat with him yesterday, there's not often where the owner is preaching the breaks in terms of expectations, and that's what he was doing with us.
I was a little surprised. I thought he would be more ambitious, but maybe he's just trying not to heap pressure
on a new coach,
all of that,
and Nathan and all that. Yeah.
But, it's a 9-team league, and if you've got a quarterback who you think can play at the top of the league, and I think Nathan proved that in 2022, you should be a contender, right? Like, I know last year they thought, okay, it's home Grey Cup and all that, but pass rush, it was an issue last year.
Mm-hmm.
Can NFL cast off Kimoko Tarai, team with Mathieu Betts, off the edge, allow the Lions to get pressure rushing just 4. Betts had 2 sacks in 7 games last year after coming back from the NFL. So how much does he have left? We'll see. But if they can get pressure with 4, that is going to make the job on defense a whole lot easier. Canadian depth this year looks like it could be an issue. As it stands now, and we'll see what Buck Pearson, the coaching staff, dials up prior to Saturday, but right now they look to be starting the minimum 7 Canadians. That's Betts, Ben Hladek, Christophe Beaulieu coming off a fine rookie season at safety, Michael Couture at center, Rourke, and then the 2 receivers, McInnes and Catoy. Now they could probably backfill some Canadian starters at right guard, Tyler Packer. Sadly, David Foucault is going to be gone a long time, according to Coach Buck Pierce today. It was a gruesome, horrible injury he suffered in that preseason game Friday. So right guard, Christian Covington at defensive tackle, maybe even Patrice Rene at Sam linebacker if need be. But we've become accustomed to BC having one of the best Canadian content groups in the league. They typically have started somewhere between 8 and 10 Canadians at this stage of the season, knowing that attrition is going to take place over the course of the season. Mm-hmm. And they've gotten the most snaps out of Canadians because they've gotten these bonus draft picks the last couple of years for that rewards Canadian participation. So will that continue this season? That's an interesting question for them. And then the one thing that new GM Ryan Rickmaiden has been preaching from the moment he got the job, and frankly was preaching it even before that when he was in the Lions front office but not making the big decisions, physicality. There were too many business decisions being made on defense last year. You need hungry guys who are willing to lay it on the line and enjoy violence more than the next man if you're going to be successful. So has the team culture changed in terms of physicality this year? Something else I'll be watching starting on Saturday, but excited. Whitecaps home to Seattle Sunday, 6 p.m., missing 9 players on international duty. Canadian men's national team head coach Jesse Marsh, he was at the Minnesota game last Wednesday, Blake. Chance to see the 3 Canadian Caps.
He was making the tour, did some Northwest stops, looking at the Timbers and Sounders, I believe, as well, and then was at Vancouver FC versus Atletico Ottawa, and he was taking in a lot of soccer.
Right, so you have the 3 Canadian Caps, Jaden Nelson, Ali Ahmed, and Sam Adekube. Of course, Minnesota United has the Canadian keeper, Dane St. Clair.
And Daniel O'Shea.
Mm-hmm. Former TFC captain and American international Michael Bradley has joined Marsh's coaching staff. Coaching, of course, runs in the blood there, as Michael is the son of former U.S. men's national team head coach Bob Bradley, longtime MLS coach as well. Should shout out the Canadian women. They got a 4-1 win over Haiti on the weekend in Montreal. They will play the Haitians again today. The men have Ukraine Saturday in Toronto and Ivory Coast Tuesday, also at BMO. The Gold Cup starts June 17th with Honduras here versus Canada at BC Place.
Yeah, it's an interesting month ahead, and I think we're going to see some fiddling with the lineup because this is the last summer of tune-up before the World Cup,
That's right?
So he's got to see
serious now.
And no Alphonso Davies for any of this because of the ACL. So there's going to have to be this is a wonderful opportunity for guys down the left side like Sam Adekube who can, win some minutes and maybe force Davies into a different spot.
What has Jesse said or done with regards to Alphonso positionally?
He didn't upset the apple cart in the brief looks that we got last year.
So Fonzie at left back.
Yeah. But
a modern left back pushing forward often.
Yeah. So the question is if he really liked what Sam Adekubi's doing, do you move him into the midfield, into an interior position, or do you put him as a left winger and have him attack fully?
Fonzie, yeah.
Yeah. Kone has not had a great year, so do you have Eustachio and Davies beside each other there? Hard to know.
And then the Davids up front.
I think it's time to. I would put 2 up top myself. I would go 2 up top and put the Davids up top. Yes.
Mm-hmm. As for the Caps,
Davies, David in the starting lineup. It's like the Pattersons with the Canucks.
As for the Caps, this will be a tall order. Do you know if is Seattle missing a ton of guys to international duty too? Are they a stripped down side as well? Or
not as much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they need your support, and as we know, those Sounders supporters, they travel pretty well, particularly for a weekend game. So get your tickets, get into BC Place on Sunday for a big Cascadia matchup. Check out whitecapsfc.com. The Seattle Mariners announced they will be honoring Randy Johnson's number 51 at a game sometime next season. I would say retired, but it's also Ichiro's number. Can you believe that? Like 2 of the greatest players in the franchise, 51. Like, it's kind of a bizarre number.
It's a very bizarre number. You're right. If it was something a little bit more mainstream, that would be understandable. But 51 is odd, and not just the best in franchise. Like, these were 2 of the best in baseball.
2 Hall of Famers,
yes.
Right? 2 Hall of Famers. Johnson spent the bulk of his career in Seattle. After coming over in the blockbuster trade, I still remember it to this day. In fact, the anniversary was a couple of days ago when the M's traded ace Mark Langston to the Montreal Expos, and that was a signal. Remember, the Expos are serious.
Yeah.
They're spending money. He was a wild prospect at the time. He knew the ball was going fast. He just didn't know where it was going very often. Turned into a hell of a big leaguer, needless to say. Parts of 10 seasons in Seattle, won 130 games, a 5-time All-Star with the M's, won 1 of his 5 Cy Youngs. Mike and I were looking at him before the show. 6 different times, Blake, he led the league in WAR. Now, people didn't talk about WAR back then. The analytics revolution was not upon us.
Yeah.
But basically, the most valuable player in baseball, 6 times, Randy Johnson.
It's absurd. Mm-hmm. So imposing. Mm-hmm. So imposing.
Just ask the seagull.
For birds and players alike.
Yes. So look forward.
Not since Dave Winfield have birds trembled at the sight of a baseball player.
Winfield and Johnson, beware seagulls.
Yeah.
The Vancouver Canadians are Tri-City tonight to face the Dust Devils, 6-game set there. Cal Steven on the mound after getting his first win at this high A level last week at the Nat. And Vancouver is back home 1 week from today to face Spokane. Tuesday is the first dog day of summer. Bring your pooch to the park. And then next Saturday, how about this? It's Blue Jays Day at the Nat. Appearances from World Series MVP Pat Borders and former Jays starter Todd Stottlemyre.
And Matt Sakaris will be singing the national anthem in an untucked, stolen Blue Jays jersey.
You got a diamond. You got 9 men. People still giving me grief about the untucked.
Yeah.
I'm not playing. I'm singing a few bars of the Blue Jays fight song. I'm sorry, it's not getting tucked.
You also don't have a receipt.
The jersey was given to me. Well, there's a little controversy about the jersey. It was a spring training jersey.
Yeah.
They sent it up. It was supposed to go back to Dunedin. It may or may not be in a closet in Kitsilano right now. It may or may not be worn to Blue Jays in Seattle most every year. And people stop me and go, whoa, what's that jersey? Where'd you get that jersey? Why's it got a Florida patch on it?
Atkins and Shapiro on line 1.
Mm-hmm. Get your Canadians tickets, 604-872-5232. I am interested in Todd Stottlemyre because, Blake, we thought Dave Stieb was intense on the mound. You remember?
Yeah.
And then Stottlemyre came around, and he had those like Looney Tunes eyes. And
Well, he was also a young kid at the time,
he was
struggling
so full of piss and vinegar. He was
the ultimate 12-win, 12 losses starter.
But he'd battle for you, and man, was he intense. And he was the type of guy, like Steve, where when he saw that manager coming out of the dugout to take him out of the game.
Don't you dare come get me.
Oh, yeah. You kept your eyes on the mound because you didn't know what was going to happen there. In fact, the Blue Jays had a number of those over the years. Remember David Wells, Boomer Wells?
Oh, yeah.
And who's the other lefty who got real upset? Oh, Ted Lilly. Do you remember Ted Lilly? Anyways, looking forward to the Blue Jays day at the ballpark. Bogey Juice poll question results from Monday. Is the Abbotsford Canucks playoff run making you optimistic about the NHL club's future? Yes or no? What did the people say?
People said no.
They said no. Percentage?
58.
56. Pretty good.
Yeah, I think people are worried that it's just going to get pilfered or that it's too many veterans that are carrying the load. I think all of those.
Kenny, they're a deep team for the AHL, but likely only a few game changers at the NHL level. Ron, no. In years gone by, I often got excited about prospects in the Canucks farm system, but so rarely do they ever come close to living up to the hype that now I don't get excited until they show they can do it in the big leagues where it counts. Calling and planning, no. Nice story. Could help in the future with players knowing what it takes in the playoffs. Hard to see many impactful players from this group. And then Scar Bacon. Hello, Al. This is Vancouver. No. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program and beyond. I have a few. It's now the Cleveland Guardians. John Shannon mistaken with the old team name there. And you say I got the affiliate wrong for the...
Yes, and thank you to Warren for pointing this out. Charlotte Checkers NHL affiliate are the Florida Panthers, not the Carolina Hurricanes.
And I said yesterday, Mathieu Darche takes over the New York Islanders and then just does a Lou Lamoriello move in signing Kyle Palmieri.
Literally is the case.
Yeah, because Lamoriello had said at the deadline, look, we traded Nelson, but we intend to re-sign Palmieri. And then there was no deal announced. David Pagnotta reports that it's a handshake deal, that the Islanders did a couple of handshake deals with players on contracts to re-sign them, but just didn't, announce or register the contracts. So apparently Darche was just doing what had already been promised with some encouragement from ownership, according to Pagnotta. I didn't even think that was legal. We got a contract in a drawer. We're not going to register? Okay. Anything else to report? No. Okay, thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us telling you about. Keep it local.